There is a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between radio and bar talk, between commentary and recaps, and it lies between the pit of man's Netflix subscriptions and the summit of his binge-watching ability. This is the dimension of podcasting and the Twilight Zone. These are the Zone-i-Sodes. And now your hosts, Brandon Davis and Scott McFarland.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to the Front Row Movie Reviews, the podcast for people who actually like movies. And welcome to a new show that we're doing. First off, my name is Scott McFarland. I handle flashbacks for the Front Row. And with me today, I have
Brandon Davis, and I am the classics guy for the Front Row Movie Reviews.
I do classics, which is
I do classics.
kind of why we're both here today. So we're in an interesting time in terms of entertainment. And I would argue that the best entertainment nowadays, for the most part, is not on the silver screen. It's on, well, I guess our screens are pretty big nowadays, but whatever you want to call it, the tube or the flat panel TV or what have you. But so one of the things we've been doing in the Front Row for the past couple of years is every once in a while we'll talk TV. And it'll probably be just a news segment, or in our year in review we talk about them a little bit. But as we continue to go on and talk about the things that we love in terms of entertainment, it's becoming more and more obvious that sooner or later we're going to have to crack that TV wall. And so what better way to do that than to talk about what is probably one of the best, if not the best, television shows of all time. So here's the idea that we had. Brandon and I, because we like to punish ourselves.
We
do. We're going to do something new for our podcast, because we decided at first that we wanted to talk about Twilight Zone, obviously, since this is what this is called.
Yeah.
But we also knew that just talking about it for an hour, giving our highlights and what we liked and what we didn't like, wasn't going to do this show justice. I mean, there's 156 episodes in the original run from 1959 to 1960, whatever. So
1964, yeah.
That's why Brandon's here, because he remembers stuff and I don't. So our plan, and so far it has worked kinda, and we'll leave it at that. But our plan is to stick with this and review all 156 episodes of Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone. So that is the goal, and hopefully you'll join us as we go along with this. This first episode is kind of an intro to announce what we're doing, but also to kind of give our initial insight into what we think, what we remember about the Twilight Zone, and what we are looking forward to, and where we think this is going to go. So first, Brandon, we'll go to you and kind of give us a gist of how you got into the Twilight Zone, how familiar are you with it, and what you're looking forward to.
Well, the cool thing about this venture that we're gonna be taking here, it really is Twilight Zone. Of course, is a classic show, and of course, me being the classics guy, I guess it's kind of appropriate. But it's a show that I've watched off and on over the years, when Sci-Fi runs their New Year's marathons or whatever, of course they've always been part of my consciousness. But I will admit here that I'm not the biggest Twilight Zone expert, and I probably, as a matter of fact, I haven't seen every episode. So this will be interesting for me, because I'm not necessarily looking at the series for the first time, but this is the first time that I'm really sort of going over the show with a fine-tooth comb, I guess I want to say. I really have not, they've really been more of kind of a recreational viewing for me. I don't know them by heart the way I do other movies or TV shows or whatever.
So what you're saying is the Twilight Zone was a recreational drug, and now we're going hardcore.
Basically.
We've moved from pot
But no,
to heroin. Here we go.
but no, the great thing about this show is it really ties in well with the Front Row movie podcast because Rod Serling basically wrote a 25-minute movie every week when he created the show. Every episode is special unto itself. We'll notice a lot of similar themes going throughout the whole series, but every episode is basically like talking about a mini movie. We don't have characters continuity to keep up with. We don't have all these running plots converging together and trying to keep up with. So each time we talk, it's a totally different experience. And so that's what'll be unique about this as well.
Yeah, and unique for the time, too, because we don't have too many anthology shows right now. There's a couple here and there.
Yeah.
But for the most part, most of the TV, at least the good TV on right now, is very much continuous stories and a through line throughout, at least the same characters. So yeah, it'll be very interesting talking about an anthology series that truly is an anthology.
And we're in an era right now where movie stars are actually doing TV again, which really hasn't happened since I guess the late 50s, early 60s. It used to be pretty prestigious to do TV because back in the 50s there was live television, which Rod Serling wrote for. He wrote live plays, which major New York actors, theater actors, and some movie actors would come on and do. And there would be shows like this. And then somewhere along the line, probably in the late 60s, TV kind of became a dirty word for movie stars. And they really sort of veered away from that, unless, you were an older, movie star who didn't get much work and would guest star on a sitcom occasionally or something like that. But we're kind of in this era once again. And I guess it's why critics are now calling the era that we're in currently television's second golden age, and we're looking now at a show from television's first golden age.
Absolutely.
So a great connection between the past and the present here.
Yeah, I think part of this comes down to the invent of streaming, because I think what we have seen now is because shows can be made to a more niche audience, first with cable networks, but more so now with streaming, and that they can actually produce and release when they want to. You're not subject to a season or to sweeps weeks and all of that. For example, another show that I'm looking forward to is Star Trek Discovery. Star Trek Discovery has been postponed twice now. Originally, it was supposed to come out right now, actually, January, February, on CBS All Access, because CBS wants me to pay for another streaming service, which I will. I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
But then it was scheduled for May, and then finally CBS a few weeks ago came out and said, we're in production now. In fact, here's a picture of the sets. So we're not in production, but it will come out when it's ready. Yeah. It will come out when we're ready to let it come out. And I like that. I mean, I have to wait a year at a time for Game of Thrones, and I have to wait a year for House of Cards, and I'm going to have to wait a year and a half for Westworld. But at the end of the day, if I get a really good quality show while I'm waiting for it, sometimes House of Cards isn't exactly quality, but, if I'm going to get a good quality show and I'm going to get good actors in those shows, I'm okay with waiting a year to a year and a half for this. And so I think this second golden age is a good point, and I'm hoping that the competition from TV, along with the competition from the other medium right now, which is games, that movies will pick up the pace, and then we'll have a great back and forth where we'll have some really good quality stuff. But right now, for the most part, TV is where it's at.
Yeah, well, and that's where the movie industry right now, I think, can kind of learn from that, because back in the 50s when TV came along, movie studios realized this was hurting them, and they upped their game. They made all different kinds of movies, huge spectacles and small independent, character movies, and they really said, we've got to go a step further because TV's killing us right now, and you don't really see the movie industry stepping up the way that they did then. So we'll see if that happens, but
we're just waiting to see when Sony goes bankrupt, and they'll figure it out.
But the other thing that I'm really interested in tracking here is we talked about actors, and Rod Serling was a master of casting. and he cast really, really good, solid actors. In the majority of these, you'll see people playing characters you're not used to seeing them play in the other mediums that they work in. You'll see up-and-coming actors who were just getting their big breaks. You'll see older stars who probably hadn't worked in a while get a chance to do some interesting work. So really interesting, and it'll be interesting to see also who the most frequent actor on the Twilight Zone is. I have a feeling it's going to be Jack Klugman. I'm not sure, but I think
we will keep the tally and we'll give the awards out. Maybe we can give awards out at every end of season or something, like most times on film, most props used. I don't know. We'll figure something out, but I'm sure we'll have something at every end of the seasons.
Because it'll be a while before we actually get to Rod in person doing the intros. So there's a lot to clock in with those.
But that's something that we couldn't talk about the show without talking about that man, Rod Serling. I think he was a genius, both as an artist but also as a satirist. And he was one of the first folks who came up with the idea that I want to say something on this medium. I want to say something that has meaning, but the network censors aren't going to let me do that. And he tried that a couple times. He had some, as you mentioned, the live shows and also some other pilots that he put together that were very poignant. And in fact, to a point where some of them didn't see the light of day. And so he decided, the only way I'm going to do this is to use a genre and a medium that I can get through the censors without them realizing what I'm doing. And that medium, as it has been that time, and as it's been a lot of times throughout the decades, and that was sci-fi and horror. And so what his idea here was to give a riveting story 25 minutes at a time for one season, an hour at a time. And we'll get into that when we get there. But he was able to implant some really on-the-nose ideas that resonate even to this day. And I'm sure we'll hit on a lot of those as we go on. And some of my favorite episodes do resonate even to this day. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm somebody who grew up on the Twilight Zone. I remember seeing it with my father in reruns, and then he had some of them on his VHS tapes. So I have probably seen every episode at least once. But usually when they have the marathons, which I watch religiously, and this is actually where this idea came from. I was watching the marathon, and Brandon was watching the marathon, and we both talked about the idea of doing this at the same time. But the marathons usually show the same bulk of episodes. Sci-Fi Channel 2 years ago tried to run them all in order, but for the most part, they show the ones that you know and you're used to. So I think it'll be interesting to see some of the lesser ran ones. There's actually one or two in here that were only ran once or twice on television. The only place you can find them is in streaming. So it'll be very interesting to hit all of these in order, to see the development of the show, and as Brandon already mentioned, to see how the show started out to where there was no Rod talking to the camera. The narrative was always there, but Rod wasn't there. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how things change. They switched to video during some of this.
They do.
Yeah, it's or whatever. Maybe it wasn't video per se, but it looks soap opera-y. So they switched to different cameras. So and
in season 4 they go to an hour.
Yes,
which is interesting too. So
yes, and that's a good point to point out as well too. Is this the great thing about streaming services? Is this is the only way you can see these episodes unedited. So when you're watching these, if you have the Blu-ray or the DVD sets, you're good, you're golden. Or if you have Netflix, that would be the way to go, or Hulu. And actually, the one place where Hulu beats Netflix is Hulu is the only place, aside from the DVDs and Blu-rays, where you can see season 4. Which is the hour-long episodes. And we'll get there when we get there in probably 3 or 4 years. But one of my favorite episodes...
Fingers crossed.
We're going to try. As long as we don't get put in internment camps by the current administration, we should be good. But but one of my favorite episodes is one of those hour episodes, and we'll get to it when we get to it. But I'm looking forward to talking about that episode. And it has to deal with Nazis. So, Spoilers. So,
well, and
yeah, go ahead, Brent.
yeah, no, I was saying you were talking about Rod Serling, and I think it's no question that Twilight Zone is always ranked among the best TV shows of all time, and the one of the common links I think between all of the best TV shows of all time is usually while they have a team of writers, they have a team of directors. There's usually one or two people who have one vision.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's not run by committee. This show was Rod Serling's vision, and if you look at any of the other great TV shows in history. All in the Family was Norman Lear's vision. West Wing was Aaron Sorkin's vision. The Dick Van Dyke Show was Carl Reiner's vision. So it's all run by that one person, and so nothing even. It means that even the least episodes of this show are better than some other TV show's best. So that'll be interesting to track as well.
And that's a good point to make too. And one of the ways we're going to do that is because I agree with you, and I think a lot of people would agree that even when this show was not as good as it could have been, it's still better than, I would say, 90 to 99% of all TV that's come out. So what we're going to do is we are going to rank these episodes as we talk about them. We're going to give them a 1 through 10 score, but we're going to base that score off of other episodes in the series. So a 1 is a really bad Twilight Zone episode. A 10 is one of the best Twilight Zone episodes. A 5, which if your teacher gave you a 50%, you'd be pretty in trouble. But for us, a 5 is an average episode of the Twilight Zone, which is a pretty darn good episode. So as we go in through this too, another thing we'll be tracking is which episodes rank higher for us. And I think it'll be interesting to kind of see how they all pan out as we get farther along and we start ranking these things. So, Brandon, I think we've hit on the highlights here of what we're trying to do. You want to go ahead and give us your final thoughts about what you're looking, or I guess we already said what we're looking forward to, but your final thoughts.
This is going to be a really interesting, long journey. We
are in episode 1 of 157.
Episode 1. One of the things I'm planning to do each time is, thanks to Wikipedia, on the episode pages on Wikipedia, they provide you with Rod Serling's opening and closing narrations. So hopefully each time, unless whoever creates these pages didn't do their job, I'll provide the opening and closing narrations, and I think Scott loves to write plot summaries, so he'll provide a short little plot summary with each episode.
Just like to torture everybody with plot summaries is what it comes down to. But yeah.
So yeah, some episodes we'll talk longer about, some episodes we don't need as much discussion on. So the length of our conversations will also vary as well.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no! I was just. You can go ahead. That's fine.
Well, I was going to say the one thing we can promise you, no matter how long the episode's going to be, we expect to have these drop once a week on Fridays. So you can either find this, and I'm holding us to it. We're going to drop on Fridays, for better or worse. But you can find us in 2 different places right now. You can find this podcast on our main feed, which is the Front Row Movie Reviews. You can find that through iTunes, or you can find us on the website, thefrontrowmoviereviews.com. Then also you can find us on our YouTube channel, which is the Front Row Movie Reviews on YouTube. So we'll be posting these to our podcast feed for those audio listeners, and for those who can't get enough of the sexy looks of Brandon and myself, you can check us on YouTube as well too when they come out. And hopefully, because we are actually recording these as they really drop, we'll be able to kind of get an idea of what you all are interested in. So if you like what we're doing, let us know. If you'd rather just go in a different direction, let us know that too. And we hope to get the feedback of what you're looking forward to and what episodes you like as well too. And maybe we'll even have some special guests as we go along when we get to some episodes that other people like as well too.
Absolutely.
So I think that will close us up for today. We're very excited for this. We're looking forward to it. I think Brandon and I are very interested in what we're going to be doing, and it's just fun to be watching these episodes in a different way and watching them with a critical eye. And I'm looking forward to it. So with that, again, my name is Scott McFarland, and as always, I have with me
Brandon Davis. I do classics.
It's part of his contract. He must say that. And until next time, we will see you. I guess we can't say we'll see you in the front row because, well, we're not watching this in the theater. So we'll see you on the couch. How about that?
That's good.
Well, have a good one, folks.
Yes.
Yeah, you too, Brandon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Zone-i-Sodes. Zone-i-Sodes is a special presentation of the Front Row Movie Reviews podcast. For more information, go to www.thefrontrowmoviereviews.com.